Hello, species value nature system. I want you to think of something very important, critical through time. Every modern nation lost it. One thing. For example, people go take something that's wrong. Oh wait, everyone knows it's wrong. But if there's an exception to someone pretending that they're against it and they're doing the same thing or worse, someone should be able to demonstrate that. Now, if it takes a quality of fact treatment in nature that's not being let because the people are taking senses and saying, "Oh, that's wrong," and they're taking everyone at their word. And this was and is, with modern nations, is criminally legalized, as legalized, known legalized criminal enterprises, but as criminally legalized criminal enterprises, not knowing how to explain it, not even having our American history true, because of not having accounted for the forced theater that was categorically forced. It wasn't just physical slavery, that's it. It was on everyone. It was worse than witch trials. Now, I'm not, and see that slavery, because we can't address it, because everyone's comparing it like they set up for us to do, that nature of fact treatment can't address the standing breaching roles of poverty, people stacking on a mass scale. You see, because we're having debate with pseudo sophistication, like little, punk kids with punk lawyer parents, interbranch parents, crooked since founding, victim predators, because everyone was hurt by this, which is it's an organized crime method against correlation nature, against each age of fact treatment nature. And that's each person, each group, each sequentially, all areas together. Now this, who's going to correlate? It's important to teach ourselves manners and respect for each other. You know what I'm saying? But as long as you're not, and what's important is to teach that the law is being followed. You see what they're putting? They're putting allegations, the same networks and agencies and branches recorded and involved originally and still, with the worst natures of crime against each age of fact treatment nature, and how that is coordinated to maintain same people to lie, progression, cover-ups from an originally propagated criminally forward influenced fact treatment nature against our founders who were slaves, fact treatment nature slaves. It's not acceptable to compare that to other slaves and to say, oh, they at least they had call them Uncle Toms, because that's what they were, our founders. And that phrase is tied to zoning laws uncharged, but with the forced laws. If you found out even talking about outside of a criminal internation monitored conversation, which you're not going to talk about it in that conversation either, they did bad things to you, your family, to everyone, show fear. The Mark Twain house in the Harriet Beecher Stowe house. Harriet Beecher Stowe came up, wrote the book Uncle Tom. See, these guys were working with the police at the time, because internation agencies were juxtaposed here with forced markets positions. The original Campus Marcia was by space nature's values nature system as a correlation nature. See, now this is going to use science that's going to see that poverty is worse than poverty. But it's going to use a quality of fact treatment nature, or free speech, that is not being let. And if you try to have it in the original times, then they just put rather in a database. It's not going to write the truth what happened. They're still telling that witch trials were about drugs. Why are they doing that? Because they don't want you to understand the organized crime it was about. It was about slavery. They don't want you to understand how to counter the organized crime, fact treatment wise, of slavery. Lawyers couldn't do it then, they're not going to do it now. Criminals couldn't do it then, they're not going to do it now. Branches, as criminally legalized criminal insidious natures, they couldn't do it then, they couldn't do it now. And how? Because they're self-maintained this way. How? In relationship to database relationship opinion natures. People they hear what they hear. Now, how many police forms there are undercover? Everyone sees that. See, they can't tell that. They can't tell that. There's very many. There are very many. They can't tell that. But one of the reasons we know there are very many is because we know our shared policing here. See the Russian spy den? This is with their fact treatment nature. The only legal nature we have, experts, liars, on the record, and worse than that, because if you try, because they have methods and natures of crime, exploiting this. I'm just saying, that's what you could do with title. That's a range being exploited by internation police here with our own. Maintain self-cultivating their needs to cover up lie progressions from the original base propagated for this since before our founders' births. And this is what the cartoons and the movies about, which is about what they did. They made the modern nations criminal insidiousness nature, and they took them from the sophistication to understand that, taking them from English. English is a value as a nature that could only have been revealed by area science, state sciences, and internation sciences valued simultaneously, as we'll see, because that's what caused evolution, and that's what revealed the sophistication of the ancient republic that was criminally re-engineered, semi-preserved by Jesus Christ, semi-preserved by Islam, semi-preserved. See how we have habeas corpus with the law? You can get it right, the pen, to right out of jail. Well, I mean, that's all short. They just take hand experts, make it look like you wrote things, steal your writing, not let you have a pen, days go by, torture you. I have no criminal record. I was put in jail with wire sequence shifts. There are doctors and our police and our first responder people, all with the big drug clicks through time, recorded and confessed, involved with the campuses, with the policing, with the campuses not realized, with criminal justice too, with other nations' families here, areas and onlines and such, in other ways, criminally foreign influenced and facilitated to collusion with evidences crimes. Now there's a Ray Hernandez, there's a English chair guy Cohen, a real fraudulent guy, make up recorded and confessed, involved with evidence fabrications with on and off campus police and with courts of Magnanos. Note that similar to because he also confessed and is recorded and involved with crime rules. He brought it up too, and I know it comes. He kept repeating it too. Then they go back and write whatever, which is recorded in too. They forging names sequentially through time. The police using Facebook to facilitate and cover up their crimes with kids, sex crimes. Sexually nature, other nature, stealing from them through time, facilitating interbranch families, sick, recorded, confessed, and then they pretended too long that they had conversations. They have evidence rackets with interbranch police, inclusion, so the branches aren't working. Then they say things like, it's politics' fault. or something, because the branches aren't being allowed, free speech isn't being allowed. Then they're just writing other in databases and just even breaking it, keeping everyone broke. Not broke fact treatment wise. So of course you're going to owe money. Play out the thing through generations. It's worse than poverty. It's worse than poverty. No one had legal representation. There is no, and everything that's pretending has class. There's no class. The only way to do it. And then they say you have an ego, and then we recorded. We have mental health care with interbranch, systemically with interbranch, just let go. Intermilitary, just let go. Every nation. Physical delusion propagation. Cultivation. Self-cultivation from the propagated sick source. That's why they tell you witch trials about. That's even entertained. That's even entertained. The witch trials were about an organized crime method, a breaching method, a long-term breaching method for that phase. That they do that way. They couldn't you can't keep people slaves from overseas. The same thing that was doing that had the King and Queen of England extorted, had the King and Queen of Spain extorted, had all Asia, everyone juxtaposed here, a little piece from each nation, setting up the long-term breaching method, not for money. Control us through the fact treatment nature, through database. How do you do that? Database crime method against each age of fact treatment nature. Opinions are recorded, not letting people who are not with opinions speak. Only opinions can speak, and they're not letting they're recorded dishonest premises treatments, dishonest sequence treatments, and fabrications demonstrated, and roles to it, because they don't have to even know each other, because they're facilitated to these crime methods. And this is the biggest part with the drugs, is the intermilitary roles with it, and with the internation police and doctors with their families, juxtaposed, not for undercover, because they're just making things up in databases against strangers. They're making up medical information in hospital campuses with agencies, the investigations they have tied to hospitals and stuff like that. The Trade Center corruption that was shared there and here was with Russians too. The investigations against the president with the Russians recorded criminally foreign influence and with Russians and pretending not to realize that recorded too. That's Wethersfield, Connecticut. You must understand. Now, Justin Kavinskas and his wife are recorded and confessed involved with database crimes. They said that they implied that, and it was also, I don't know who it was in the phone, but it's also recorded that a Tom Peruta and a Peruta family is associated with Russians, also associated with Hartford Hospital, also associated with aviation crimes, also associated with all kinds of evidence crimes of courts, various natures of the same in different courts at once, and their family members. And see, they're facilitated to database crime rules, evidence crime rules, federal crime rules with their mouths. Then you have to hide that up or pretend it was something else or some other, and against strangers. And pretending or having pretended other something. They're covering live progressions tied to that. And people aren't being allowed to have the law followed. And the police are just writing other. And with other police forms. Switching names. Forging doctors' names. If you try to report recorded child abusers, they'll put you for, in other words, they'll put you in there, they'll put you in the hospital and write some kind of thing to say you need to be watched. And they'll make up evidences, forge names and stuff like that to have that done. Then the fake conversations, forge names too, and switch names and stuff like that, and do all kinds of wire crimes, mail fraud crimes, and not respond to you. You see what I'm saying? Then they have this with, so it's a setup that they have shared with Sheriff Foreign Police here too. The Morrow family completely recorded and confessed, involved with other people involved with Trinity College and with CCSU. Also facilitated through the workers of the campus, like a Tanya Gill. Completely recorded, completely confessed with evidences, crime rules with court police, and with various juxtaposed other nature's police consciously having done that, recorded and confessed, using on-off-campus relationships to CCSU right there, CCSU Covington Street, through time, with the family members of the private police and like the food service and stuff like that, you know, and then with professors recorded and confessed involved with database crimes with investigators with their mouths, verbal federal crimes. Then they have to cover the line progressions like that. So we have a crime method seeding that against anyone not criminally forward influence or just indifferent, fake, you know, surface A or B logic with morality and stuff like that. And has sick convictions based on that can't comprehend that everything's not simple like that, and people there are in groups. You know, in other words, we have whole natures of industries, like with slavery, that had to go because why? Why? Because it's illegal. Well, it was legal. It was a breaching method, criminally forward influence breaching organized crime method. They had database crime method, relationship to human fact treatment nature. Keeping everyone unrealized as awes, shock and awes. See that term? Then they trick us because we were educated by this. Because this was entrenched here since before our founders, we didn't have free speech. So they need us to be able to correlate that. Because they're talking to us like this. But we're not listening. We're glorifying what they were forced to pretend. Even after the Constitutional Convention. Even in letters. No joke. Probably even with pigeons. You see what I'm saying? We have Connecticut Media Police Private, also juxtaposed with the agents police. So what do natures like that need to do? Oh, I can't believe our police. Meanwhile, we have recorded Russian spy den. This is against Russians too. This is a method that keeps naive surface think. You see what I'm saying? There's a human species in this trap. Therefore, I rap. This is why the ancients had, instead of theory, which is locked in place, they had correlation nature. So you use prayer, because you're really trying to make evolution. You see what I'm saying? They took down a mountain. Is most probable. You mountain, see how the water comes down from the mountains, top of freeze, because further away from the collected warmth of the earth, it gets colder. It freezes, comes down, saturates all the dirt, then a river starts. You know what I'm saying? It comes gradual together. River. Then you have brooks. Then you have freshwater fish. Then you have means to gardening that even the experts on it can't fathom because they're looking at it wrong. I mean, they can fathom it, but it's unfeasible because the whole soils were even tactically denatured. The whole thing. And it was done so consciously for the fact treatment racket, so it was juxtaposing people to other interests so we wouldn't be able to explain this through time. That's with the tactics of black and white. That's with the witch trials. That's with the crime of pretending it's about, they believe it's about drugs. They don't believe that drugs didn't cause the witch trial, and the people who pushing that don't believe it, except for the ones that are hurt by it the most because of pseudo-education. So organized crime breaching method in relationship to databases then and still recorded. There's nowhere to report it. So they're making these things about the president and they're making fake counters to real fears with the weapons, which everyone has. and needs it because of that, but not without countering that with the nature's voice, which not one nation has the ability, or the one legal nature capable of letting voice, and or being indifferent to the stacking of crimes on this that are to the motivations of each of the branches to conspire, recorded in collusion with their convictions, offensively predatory, no justification, just like for themselves, and no competence, because they're victim predators of pseudo education, every science, and worse, because this is hurting everyone to area, men and women, because of how many police will have rackets through this, keeping them juxtaposed with internation police. Only let realized areas cultivated, tactically pseudo-educated, some things oppressed, tortured education. Kids come. They don't means some, and then they make that different too. So they all have means together, and the ones who have it, they still don't have it, and they're in a gradient with people who don't have anything, worse than anything. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not a free market. You supplement the bricks. You give us, you know what I'm saying? But to do this, we have to agree about it, every nation. If we agree and grab this conversation, it's too strong for bombs. You see what I'm saying? Because this is no one can deny this. This is what everyone wants a garden for, but they need the water for it. They need a nature soil that really originally revealed all these seeds. You know what I'm saying? Not these tactically denatured relationships to nature, and differentially. And we're all from the same one, but different in positions. You see, the desert, you take down the mountain, now you have a desert. Now you need water. Now you need to work with this system. Well, market system, all these crazy, you have to rely on the nature of internation science that were criminally re-engineered before they even let agencies revealed. You see what I'm saying? As Oz, pseudo-sophistication, shock and awe. That's the phrase they brought us into Iraq with, a coalition. It was really for since before our founders' births. Our fact-cheaping nature slavery found their births. See, we have surface integrity, surface logic, incapable of correlation, which is multi-front, and it's not letting exceptions demonstrated. So it's all when something's bad, or always, but then they can't show how it's being used for fact treatment racket. How the person pretending to be believing that is recorded, not so passionate about it, and even worse. You know what I'm saying? We have all the answers we need recorded. We have physical delusions, and have, everyone with their terms, like ego and stuff like that. They don't even know what an ego is. You know what I'm saying? Thinking's banged into each other. That's where'd it come from, the bang? It comes from a quality of diffusion through itself, an inherent part. And in the sequence of this nature through itself, through the larger value of itself, this Trinity is 1/3 of the Trinity. In other words, our Trinity is one part of the entire body, but this part of it has the Trinity, is a Trinity as well, manifest in relationship to that, within how the full identity of space fills in immediate space nature. Temporary space nature, immediate space nature, Earth, distinctly in relationship to how it's demonstrating this, because it's the same value nature system, but it's compressed here because it's going towards the direction of the inherent, progressively, constantly. right to left and left to right at the same time. There's a quality of diffusion. As us in the active phase life, which is simultaneously the progressive phase, which is simultaneously the inherent phase. But we're going left to right with life. And it's coming right to left. And it's the one forcing us left to right. It's forcing our identity as the expansion of its nature, of value. And when it's not let progress its value here, Leth of Hadith is forced from here, forced space nature transfer. You see, the sciences, they have evidences, treatment, mistreatments, each one of them. And obfuscation, and methods motivated, nature's motivated and maintained, needing to hide that. And most people aren't going to come with quality of fact treatment nature because they're built to spot and, trapped by organized crime methods, just looked away from, let run by sense in relationship to physical positions that are all there and here with the same base life progression cover-up nature. To measure tool, self-maintained, having to justify that, and therefore perpetually incapable of stopping what means just maintaining nations, self-cultivating their roles as breaching nature as its tools in relationship to the foundation that was revealed before the integrity of modern nations, which can't defend itself and explain that at the same time because it's beyond it. It's not working with theory. It's working with only what is true always, and noting all contexts is not true. So that's with prayer. That's what comes in, because that's an active, inherent, and progressive value discernment is the same because that's manifest with nature, and the ancients revealed this. And when that's simultaneously maintained value by science, that reveals evolution. That's his whole look. They're in people stacking. This isn't a free market. Oh yeah, we all agree that we can do better than that. We'll have like we stop for holidays, but we can't stop for a couple months to get people out of the trap. You see what I'm saying? To mobilize means to make more food than we need. You know what I'm saying? Do all this. To make more oxygen. To get ready to make not only a different relationship, the right relationship to nature, but making sure it's right, but making sure it's not mobile, but like correlatively mobile. In other words, we know the water. They put it tactically underground. They with the people stacking. The way they did the everything. Tactically. When they made the crazy laws with the houses right just the way it is throughout the country. This was right here, Wethersfield, slavery in the North. George Washington had to leave it here right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. He could only semi-colon stored it. This is database crime. It's good. I got it because the agencies, former director of the FBI, recorded tied to crime rolls with federal criminals that were his co-defendants. And part of the case was that was in the 9/11 context, Ninth Circuit, proving sequence shifts from inside the court. My father had hand-delivered and had time-stamped his papers. My father was a plaintiff in a pro se civil RICO suit, a union one. He beat him before in an NLRB one. And that was guys that were still, when I was in high school, they were associated with the kids in my grade and stuff like that. And with other grades because they were doing the drugs to them. And with police, not just the FBI director and stuff like that. And with, other nations, police here, and criminals. And like criminal games like Juxtaposed and Undercover, they're all rackets. You know what I'm saying? Together. Just look at the jail. They take kids that did nothing like what they do, and they put them in jail, like sicker than killers. You know what I'm saying? And also they're using them, the jails and the courts. People associate like doctors and investigators with the jails and the courts, and their guards and stuff like that. Associated with rackets with the areas with the campus through time. So then they have criminal justice with internation families, with Trinity College and with CCSU, confessed and recorded, involved with it. So then it's hard to get a response to them because everyone's setting up fake names and stuff like that. They're all plotting, and they're all saying things about me behind my back, formerly interbranch. I'm not talking about people I know. I don't know them either. The people that from my town, I just know I saw their faces and stuff like that. And one was a girl was put in a class, and she's recorded delusions, recorded criminal persuasions, standing evidence fabrication nature. It's worse. But I want to go into that yet. When we have to go in sequence. You know what I'm saying? We have predators with our kids through time. That's why we had that problem with the churches and stuff like that, because they also confessed about how that this has been through time. I've been trying to do this. So I just, this is with agencies and their family members. And see, when you say this to people, then they have emotional responses. And this is in a context where when I didn't try to say this is how it's recorded too. They forge names, pretend I have fake conversations with people from my town, doctors that had kids in my school, involved with evidence rackets, witness fabrications, all kinds of confessions to me every year of my life from strangers. You know what I'm saying? From people I only know from confessions and stuff like that. And it's recorded various ways and confessed, There was a teacher I had named Mr. Neville. And he was recorded and confessed involved with people involved with courts and stuff like that. And with investigators associated with a golf course and some houses over there when I was a kid. And now they have a young girl right there, and some men and women involved with the exploitation of young kids, and with the courts. See, and they're doing that to cover their lab regressions. And there's like some untimely deaths that were tied, one on Trinity campus, tied to these people over here with this drug group, and an untimely death tied to that by the person who made confessions to me about that. Also tied to all these family members of one of them that been through time pretending they had conversations with me. And they know they never liked me. That's what other friends tell me. And I never had a conversation with them. So we had problems because one of them too, Phil Clow, was recorded and confessed involved for example, Bob Chase associated with